Joining us is Lesiba Mothata, is the head of market and economic research at Investment Solutions. And Lesiba was just joking quickly now off air that he and I have chosen the same color scheme for the day. Good fashion choice.
Well, I learned from the best.
So what did you say? It looks like the ANC Women's League.
We look like, we just need a little bit of gold, and we probably could run for a position in the ANC Women's League.
Well, you could.
Well, you could. I don't know about myself. I don't think I have any chance there.
Lesiba, it's always lovely to have you, especially in a week where there's quite a lot of interesting economic data that's come out. But let's start off with the latest data, fresh off the press. It's the numbers out of the US, 142,000. It sounds like a disappointing number.
It was, considering the market was expecting around 200. That's number one. And also that the previous number was revised lower. So this confirms that the pace of recovery is not as strong as we had expected out of the US. But needless to say, the unemployment rate was unchanged, and that is a good thing. Some commentators are talking about it going below 4% very soon.
Let's look at the local scene as well. We had mixed indicators. Business confidence a little bit better than it was, and I think the explanation for that was if you look at the load shedding hasn't really happened. A couple of those sorts of factors. You may have others. Vehicle sales down, but on the other hand, exports up. So mixed signals coming, not all bad.
Indeed, also the other data that shows retail activity remains positive. Manufacturing is rebounding, and mining production, barring that of gold, is also rebounding. That's why when it does not expect an outright recession in our country, bear in mind that BRIC countries are, half of them are in an outright recession. You're talking about a minus 9% contraction out of Russia, an equal minus 8% contraction out of Brazil. We are not likely to see such kind of contraction in our own country. So what will happen is these statistical basis effects that we talk about will keep GDP positive around, let's say, 1.5%.
I'm getting a sense that there is some positivity that's coming through on the front of our own economy. And as David said, we haven't had load shedding in a while. Are these kind of effects really going to begin to prop up the economy? We remember that President Jacob Zuma said he foresees the economy growing at least 3% from next year onwards. Everybody else said we don't know where he's getting the numbers from. But it certainly seems as if things are slightly getting better.
It's not as bad as it feels, because the rand at 14 makes everyone feel like this is falling out of bed. You just stay home
and you don't go
overseas. Don't go overseas. Don't go to the World Cup. Be it as it may, the growth, it's not as strong as we want it to be, as seen in the unemployment numbers. But it's not going to be negative. So we are actually just muddling along.
We're less worse than we were.
Yeah, we're just muddling along, which is not a good thing. We need stronger growth to deal with the unemployment situation that we find in our country.
Let's look at internationally. We can come back locally if you want to. But what's interested me is what's happening with Syria and the Islamic State, and Russia saying to the US, get out the way, we're coming in. Russia supporting the one side, the US the other. History may say that we should have realized that this was the start of something. And now what about the effect on oil? What about the effect on the Middle East? Are we heading for an unexpected shock to the world economic system?
And a warm war.
Yeah.
It's an age-long fight between the Kremlin and the US. So it's not of surprise that you find this antagonistic conversation that happens. But the impact on oil is a big one in that it remains low, and it is continuing to be a dividend to growth. Countries like India are actually seeing a huge benefit of a lower oil price. As such, they're cutting interest rates. Growth is around 7%. South Africa, there are some benefits. If we did not have this oil boom, we would be in a worse situation on economic growth, also on inflation. So it is a good thing that the fight between the two countries, in a way, produces a lower oil price, which is desirable for emerging market economies. I think it's a good thing.
It's a good thing, but let's talk about the platinum price. I mean, we saw that flirting with 900 very closely this week. Last night we were saying 902.
Well, the night before was 914, so it's
coming down. And what is the probability that we are going to see a significantly weaker platinum price, and how is this actually going to impact on the various industries? We've already seen vehicle sales, slumping quite strongly by 9%. But what's the broader impact of a really low platinum price, especially for South Africa?
Yeah, no, it is quite an issue. But all these things that are coming out, VW, all these emissions, it means going forward, there's an incentive for companies to get it right. And in order to get emissions standards fulfilled without cheating, is likely to be a demand for platinum.
I'm not technically up on this, but would you use less platinum if you want to cheat, or more platinum if you don't cheat? I mean, we're not clear on that. I don't know how this works.
Not an engineer by any stretch of imagination, but from my understanding, to be cleaner, you need to use more platinum, and it's related. It's related to commodities.
But there are more technologies coming, and maybe platinum's never going to get back to those heights where it was the metal that you had to have.
It's possible, but other PGMs, remember South Africa is endowed with a group of platinum-related metals, there could be demand there. So what I'm saying here is, while it's falling, it is also just the whole commodity complex is falling quite precipitously, including gold, including copper. Copper is like a bellwether of what happens in the globe, and right now it's potentially heading to about 4,000, which is quite a significant level. We call it Dr. Copper. You don't need a PhD economist to tell you where the economy is going.
Now you're an expert in something, right? So since we were talking about cheating, let's talk about corruption in the same vein. So earlier this week, CNBC Africa caught up with Lesiba Mothata, and this was on the eve of the anti-corruption march. So here's Lesiba speaking about that march, and particularly whether or not this was an anti-ANC march. A lot of people are saying that this is an anti-ANC march. Let's correct that.
Unless ANC have become corruption. It's against corruption, unless people
Has the ANC been invited to participate in that?
We have invited everybody who feels strongly about corruption. And some have said they will come, others have said all manner of things in opposition. And we are not deterred. Firstly, this is, I must accept, is one of the most daunting challenge we have decided to pick up. And it's not an easy matter. Not everybody can do this. And we're touching a very, very honest nest here. And, but we think that for the sake of our country and for the sake of our children, this is something that we must do now. Because I can't imagine us as a country being cowed into silence.
Lesiba, you can't argue with the values, you can't argue with a statement being made. Does it make any difference? Do economists, observers, investors pay any attention to this kind of thing?
Corruption. Corruption, it derails the pace of improvement in an economy. More importantly, it increases the timelines of the investments. In other words, if you had planned to build a bridge and you get intersection that causes leaks, it's going to take a longer time to fulfill that dream, and that becomes a problem. So, and it creates, it exacerbates the whole inequality situation that we find ourselves in the economy. So, you know what, I think it needs to be dealt in a more direct way.
So the thing for me that, we didn't pick up in that conversation, but that really resonated with me was Vavi highlighting the fact that corporate South Africa really hadn't come to the party in terms of participation. And the underlying reason being that because corporate South Africa still wants government business at whatever cost.
And doesn't want to be perceived as being, if this is perceived as being anti-government, don't want to be perceived. I mean, business really makes you sick sometimes. They are so cowardly about standing up and what they think in a democracy. And Chris was saying earlier, before you came in, the problems with business is cheating. Government business also needs to stand up and demonstrate that it's clean.
Correct. So cheating is a problem, but the acrimonious relationship between government and business that we find ourselves in the country, I don't think is healthy. It needs to be sorted out, and we've seen cash levels, corporate cash balances at record highs. Admittedly, it's a global phenomenon. But in it, it also expressed a business confidence that is so weak that it's not wanting to invest domestically in our market.
So you spoke about infrastructure earlier on, and we know that the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, Park Stow, is big on infrastructure. And we also know that EcoMobility is the big scare word and the swear word. I think that's going to be the prominent swear word in Sandton for the next month when the EcoMobility initiative takes off. He caught up with the CNBC Africa team at the All Africa Business Leaders Awards, and here he was talking about the opportunities in the green economy.
Not only are we committed towards the Sustainable Development Goals, not only are we committed to climate change, we actually are doing something, and these are the practical programs. So this gives us an opportunity to get a broad array of people that would participate in the programs that we're implementing, but for us to also showcase the technologies that we're innovating. You would know that our Metrobus system is now being converted to alternative energy sources. We're using dual fuel systems that combine diesel and compressed natural gas, but the vision is to actually convert to biogas as a means of propelling our vehicles and other technologies that we're introducing, including infrastructure.
Well, the mayor certainly put his money where his mouth is in many respects. A lot of the roads are being fixed, things are happening. But this seems very ambitious. I mean, the principle's great, but I just foresee snarl up Sandton Monday.
Yeah, so it's going to be very difficult to get around. There's just one point I want to make. I get heartwarmed listening to such comments, particularly around Gauteng and Pretoria. I think some of what the incumbent government is doing is very plausible. We need to applaud it. So in terms of what's going to happen in the next month, sure, it's very difficult to get around.
What's going to happen is people are going to walk. I don't understand
but
why
they're going to have to walk a long way.
It's fine. Can you just walk? Like, do the yellow pages.
All right,
do
I want to
something.
see you in your gorgeous high heels, walking up the road to Discovery or to Old Mutual.
It's called flats.
Oh.
And I think they'll probably let us use the tuk-tuks.
Yeah.
So you can tuk-tuk everywhere.
There's a lot of people using tuk-tuks. I'm skeptical.
There's one more issue that
I'm going to take the Gautrain I'm going to park at Rosebank and take the Gautrain.
You still have to walk to the office.
That's okay, it's just up the road.
Oh, no, okay, that's fine.
But
as long as you're going to walk.
Yeah. It's amazing that when you go elsewhere in the world, in New York, in DC, in London, the walking distance is actually quite far. So I think it's a good thing in a way to get us walking, because that's what one does when you're in New York.
Final comment on Thomas Piketty. You took an interest in that. He's the guy who, great ideas on, I don't think they're great, but big ideas on redistribution. He's in South Africa talking about a wealth tax.
Correct, and he was talking at the University of Johannesburg this morning, and I think he gets a lot of audience from Pretoria.
I bet he does.
He's talking right up the alley in terms of wealth tax, inequality and how you overcome that. It's radical thinking, and I was thinking about what he represents in the world. He's saying the rate of growth in assets continues to be disparate, it's unequal, because if you don't have enough money to save, you're going to be excluded indefinitely. But those who do have, the appreciation in stock markets, for example, has been 19% annually for 6 years because of government policy. The Federal Reserve has, produced QE, which has lifted assets higher in stock markets, in the housing sector. Now that house prices have been so high, all those have created a wealth gap that is so exaggerated that it needs to be thought about. I think he has something to say, but I can almost see how Pretoria will find this conversation interesting.
Well, if you want to catch the conversation, you can do that. It's 20:30. That's 8:30 this evening on the channel. And maybe let's test Lesiba's liking of these thoughts and really see whether they make sense for the South African economy. A very big thank you to him.